Hello, welcome to Walk in the Park. My name is Tony Ingram, and this is our episode 171, recorded on July 12th, 2017. This is Walk in the Park. You can see all of my episodes at walkinthepark.tv. That's my URL. Go there and you can, it's a video blog, you can see everything. And this is a public access television series, weekly television series, produced in Ithaca, New York at PEGASYS Studios. PEGASYS stands for Public Educational Government Access System, and you can see the full schedule of the series on PEGASYS at pegasys.webstarts.com. So today we are going to go to the south end of Cayuga Lake. That's what we're going to start out with. Now, first, we're going to go to the south end of Cayuga Lake and take a look at some birds of prey that have been given the opportunity to have new homes there that they didn't used to have, or haven't had for a long, long time. And then after that, we're going to go down into Pennsylvania to an interesting state park down there called Ricketts Glen State Park. And if we have any time after that, we'll take a look at some scenes in Watkins Glen State Park in the gorge there. But first of all, we're going to talk about ospreys. This is an osprey nest. This one's actually in Stewart Park, and that shows probably the mama osprey there. And if you look just to her right, our left there, are two young ospreys. This was just a couple of weeks ago I took this picture, and they are sitting on an osprey platform that was put up in the park. There's about a half dozen of them at the south end of Cayuga Lake within the city of Ithaca, and many, many more all around Cayuga Lake. And ospreys used to nest here a long time ago, but with the cutting of the forests and creation of farms and so forth, and the cutting down of tall trees, particularly things like tall white pines, they like to nest on the tops of big old dead trees, particularly dead trees, or at least trees that have the top are open, where they can put a big stick nest like this bird has, which may weigh even hundreds of pounds if they get really big. And those trees were largely gone, so birds like ospreys and bald eagles had no place to build their nests, and now they are returning to some degree. Particularly the ospreys are returning because of the help that people have given them. So in fact, there is a website you can go to and see where you can see ospreys. It's called the Cayuga Lake Osprey Trail. You can Google it online, and it's the Osprey Trail information is on the Town of Lansing Parks and Recreation Department website. And so we're going to zoom in. Here's a map. It's actually an interactive map here that you can zoom in on. Here we'll zoom in and see. These are the locations of half a dozen osprey platforms, nests that are, well, these days they're building them they're putting up things like power poles, old telephone poles, and putting supports up there for an osprey, a platform for an osprey or a osprey pair to hopefully build a nest. And they discover it, and it takes a little while sometimes, but they do. And they've also been nesting on just on power poles, on even light fixtures, stadium lights, all different kinds of things they can find. So those sometimes get in the way of human uses or become a hazard either to ospreys or others. So now there's been a big program of a number of different partners like bird clubs and parks and the New York State Electric and Gas Corporation to put up osprey platforms like this one at Stewart Park. So let's take a look. This is zooming in on their map there. You can see that silhouette of an osprey bird. That's the location of this particular nest, and you can actually go watch it. Don't get too close, because if the birds get agitated, that's certainly not good for them. They're trying to raise their young. And but it's on this tall pole, as you'll see in a moment. I'm going to have a short video of it. That is where they're raising at least two young ospreys are in there now. Well, I don't know where they are. They took this, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, I guess. So they should still be there, I guess. Anyway, let's go to a video of this particular nest. This is pretty cool. So did you see the young in that nest? So what is an osprey? An osprey is a bird of prey or a raptor, which means, I think, from the Latin to seize, not a dinosaur. The osprey sometimes has been called a fish hawk, and they live almost exclusively on fish. So they need to live near water. They need to nest near water particularly so they can feed their young fish. And I have actually a picture of a fish being brought in by an osprey. I'll show you actually later a video. So they need somewhat shallow water. Now Cayuga Lake has probably more ospreys than maybe all the rest of the Finger Lakes combined, because it is a long area of shallow water at the northern end of the lake, 8 to 10 miles, and it also has the Montezuma marshes and their pools and so forth, where there's a lot of shallow water where they can catch fish. And also at the southern end, we got a mile or so of shallow water, and up around Myers Point and Lansing is a large shallow water area, and there are 2 osprey nests platforms been put up both at Myers Park and then Salt Point, which is in the north side of Salmon Creek at Myers Point. So at Myers, yeah, the whole thing I guess you could call Myers. But anyway, so that's what they need. They need water where the shallow water they can catch fish, and so there's a good amount of that. Plus they need a good fishery, and Cayuga Lake has a good fishery. There's a lot of fish in it. So now we'll get in a little bit more about just in a moment here about why ospreys disappeared and why they're coming back. So we're going to go now to the other side of the south end of Cayuga Lake, still within the city of Ithaca, and this map shows 2 osprey platforms. We're going to look at one of them. The upper one is that's out in the middle of a field in Allen H. Treman State Marine Park. You can see the marina to the lower right there. This is off the webpage again. And if you look just to the right of that bird silhouette and a little down, there's some trees, and we're going to go into those trees and look back at the platform. You can see the platform in the back there from this interpretive sign about the ospreys. And so let's get in a little closer on this interpretive sign. And no, you can't really read that there, so I'm going to actually have it on my iPad, and I'm going to try to read some of that for you. Okay, it says, absent from the skies for decades, ospreys are back to breed and ply Cayuga Lake's water for fish. And then in the line says, unintended consequences there. Populations of our top bird predators, raptors, plummeted between 1950 to 1970 due to the overuse of pesticides, particularly broadcast spraying of DDT. The pesticide's unintended damage to wildlife was slow to surface. The impact was tragic for raptor species. Pesticides bioaccumulate in species up through the food chain. That is, they increase in concentration in each organism up the chain. Ospreys' diets consist almost solely of fish, and the DDT concentrated in the fat tissue of the fish. The most dramatic impact was on the reproduction. DDT altered the bird's ability to process calcium, resulting in very thin eggshells that would break under the weight of the adults. As reproduction rates fell, so too did sightings of these incredible avian anglers over the waters of the Finger Lakes. So DDT was banned early 1970s, I guess, and it is dissipated from the environment, and so it's no longer a concern. But there's been the combination, the loss of nesting habitat and the use of DDT resulted in ospreys virtually disappearing from our landscape. And but now they're coming back with the help of humans, and the DDT is no longer a significant background quantities. So let's take a look now. We'll go back to our slide here and take a look at a video here at Allen Treman State Marine Park of an osprey family having lunch. So you see the young in the nest there moving around, and we were able to get a good view of that fish that the probably the male osprey brought in from the lake, and he was still alive, he was still flipping around, and then they finally started to prepare lunch. So that was really quite a lucky sight for me to see that and catch that on video. So so ospreys are coming back. There's the Cayuga Lake Osprey Trail. Let me get back to that slide here. It goes around the lake. You can't see it so well here probably, but there's all these little yellow dots here which you can zoom in on and actually find out where the locations of osprey nests like these are that you can then go visit. These are nests. Well, last count 58 nests around the lake that you can see from a road or a park or something like this. There are other nests as well, but they're on private property or in places that are not easy to get to or would be easily disturbed if people went to see them. Now, this bird here, the first bird at Stewart Park, was making a lot of calls. Was doing a lot of calls, and I didn't know at the time what that was about. I thought, well, maybe it was calling to its mate, whether it was going to bring in fish or not. But I've also read that if you get too close to an osprey nest, they'll start making noises like that, and it means they're getting agitated. So perhaps that was happening. There was a picnic table that I went to, and seemed like a safe enough distance. But some of the ospreys are very tolerant of people being close by, and others are less tolerant. So I don't know whether that was an agitated bird or not. But if you hear a bird doing all that calling, maybe you want to get off to a greater distance, because you don't want to stress the ospreys. They it takes a lot of energy to raise young and sit up there in the wind and catch fish and that sort of thing, so you don't want to stress them. Okay, so let's see, where are we going to go next here? Well, by the way, this is my show, Walk in the Park, walkinthepark.tv, weekly public access television show here in Ithaca, New York on Channel 13, and also you can watch them on my video blog, walkinthepark.tv. That's a URL. It's like .com, this is .tv or .net. So, but now we're going to go, this is a trip I did a couple of weeks ago. I went down into northern Pennsylvania to a park I had wanted to go to for many years called Ricketts Glen State Park in Pennsylvania. And it's so we have Watkins Glen and we have Fillmore Glen and all these other gorges and glens around here. Well, this is a gorge waterfall park in Pennsylvania, actually quite a large one. But one thing that's always been interesting to me about this park is the geology of it. Now, looking at this map here, showing the geologic provinces we're in. If you look about it, says Watkins Glen in the middle there, if you can make it out. Of course, we're to the east of there, the south end of Cayuga Lake. And the area that's kind of a greenish color there is called the Allegheny Plateau, which is part of a larger province of the Appalachian Plateaus. And you go so where the Finger Lakes are eroded, cut into the northern edge of the Allegheny Plateau, which is an old it's not a mountain region. We are pretty much horizontal, or not really horizontal, but largely flat, largely level rock layers, and Catskill Mountains are part of that. The Poconos are part of that, and the Finger Lakes are etched into the northern edge of the plateau as it gives up at the northern edge of the end of the lakes where it gets all flat. And the plateau continues down into central Pennsylvania. And at the southern edge of this plateau, before you get into the Appalachian Mountains, the Ridge and Valley area, is where this Ricketts Glen State Park is. And there are waterfalls and gorges pouring off of that. So and actually a little bit higher down there. So we're going to go down to Ricketts Glen and take a look at some of the features. I was there for a couple of days. And this is their visitor center park office that I pulled into, and got some maps and so forth. And then I went on to I got my campground permit and I went on to the campground. Here's the map. It's got a lot of detail. Obviously you can't make out here, but it's a big park. It's over 15,000 acres. And you compare that to our parks around, state parks around Ithaca, they're like around 1,000 acres, or maybe a little less or a little bit more. And so this park is like at least 15 times bigger than our average gorge park around here in the Finger Lakes. And so there's they have a lake You see up on the upper part there, in the northern part of the park, it's held up by a dam, and that's a nice campground. Is right in the peninsula that goes right up in that lake. That was really cool. Although I didn't go there for the boating and the fishing, I went there for the hiking. And on the left-hand side of this map is an area, there's some trails, and it's called Grandview. And I went out on Grandview Trail. I didn't go very far. It was late when I got in that day, and but I went there to see the mountain laurel blooming. And we don't have much of any mountain laurel around here. There are some nominal patches of it back in the woods that you have to know a botanist to find. But through much of the Appalachians and down in southeastern New York and the Hudson Highlands and so forth, there's a lot of this mountain laurel, and it's beautiful. It's blooming in June, blooming in early July. So I went in, I took some pictures that evening, and took a lot more too, but I just have a couple here. But it's a very pretty plant, so that's one of the reasons I decided to go down there, because the mountain laurel would be in bloom. So okay, so we're going to go now to another part of the park. Let's take a look at where that's going to be. Now, in the middle of this map, the white area is actually the area of the glens. It's part of the park, and all the way down at the bottom, just to the left, you can see there's a road goes down there, and there's a trail that goes then up through all the glens. But the bottom of the trail is an old growth forest. There's big old trees in there that are hundreds of years old, and here's a plaque about the area here, and this is actually on the National Register of National Natural Landmarks. See if I can find that particular picture here and then read it. Let's see if I don't know if I can, but So anyway, it's a national. Yeah, this big plaque in there. Wait a minute, I'm getting there. I can read something off of this. Here we go. Okay, so here at the southern edge of the Appalachian Plateau, streams such as Kitchen Creek have cut deep gorges like Cayuga Glen and Glen Lake. The two stream branches descend the Allegheny front in a series of dramatic falls before they unite at Waters Meet. From here, Kitchen Creek continues the descent through the Ricketts Glen and on to the north branch of the Susquehanna River. The glens are sheltered by a majestic old-growth forest of pine, hemlock, and oak. The glens is a registered National Natural Landmark and has been set aside for protection as a state park. Okay, so this actually back, I think in around World War II was projected to be a national park, but then I guess the war intervened and became a state park after that. So I walked up the trail a ways in that morning, and there were some big old hemlocks there, beautiful old trees. And it's gentle for quite a ways until you get up into the area of the waterfalls and the glens. And there are lots of waterfalls, by the way. And I looked on some of the trees, and they had these tags on them. And what I believe they are is those are identification of hemlock trees that have been treated chemically to hold off the hemlock woolly adelgid, which is a invasive insect that is killing our hemlocks around here right now. And of course, is in that area and destroyed much of the hemlocks in the farther east in New York. I've had that a lot of information about the hemlock woolly adelgid in some of my other shows. But anyway, so a number of those trees were tagged like that, and I was glad to see that. But there are so many more that are not going to make it. Here's an interesting tree that was going across Kitchen Creek, I guess it is. So then that was the morning. In the afternoon, I went up to the top of the mountain. It's called Red Rock Mountain, and that's where the campground is, and the swimming and all that is up there on top of the mountain, on top of the plateau, really. And I went down into the glens. I took the glen trails down. So there's two branches. It's sort of like a Y that meet at this place called Waters Meet, as the sign said. So I went down Cayuga Creek, and at first that started out fairly gentle with these stone steps, and then a few little waterfalls. There are many, many waterfalls along the way, and then finally I came to the one that I had planned to get to and stop at, called Cayuga Falls. And here it is from the top along the trail, and then coming down around to the falls. There's kind of a switchback trail going down to the falls and finally getting to the falls. So that's actually the biggest waterfall, the tallest waterfall, I should say, in the park. It's 94 feet high, something like that, which is a little less than half the height of Teganic Falls, and a little less than the height of, actually it's about 20 feet lower than, 21 feet lower than Lucifer Falls in Robert Freeman State Park. And for us, it looks like, oh, no, nice waterfall, but it's a big one for Pennsylvania. And for this park, it's the biggest one. But there are many other waterfalls that I didn't get to. And the trail continues way down into the glens to Waters Meet, and then you can go up this other glen, in which I read is much more rugged. Even though this is pretty tricky foot. Well, not too bad, but I mean, we know the nice stone steps and trails that we have here in the Finger Lakes. We've gotten kind of spoiled with the civilized gorges we have, and here they have put up stone slabs, but it's a little bit rougher, but still pretty civilized compared to a lot of like places in the Adirondacks or the Catskills. So now we're coming back up above the falls, looking through the leaves at the falls, and getting a little higher up near the top of the falls. Again, that stone step stuff. You don't want to trip and fall on that stuff because it's quite steep. So that's pretty much it. That's it for Ricketts Glen. I do have some other pictures of, we'll try this one. This is at Watkins Glen. There's a quick video here I want to show you.
When Morval de Nels gave names to various sections of Watkins Glen, he also called some of those sections glens themselves. For instance, Glen Alpha, Glen Cathedral, Glen of Pools, Glen Arcadia, and Glen Facility. At the end of Century Bridge, Glen Alpha opens up to you. You peer up the stream as it runs toward you through a twisting, narrow, smooth channel of rock. Beyond, high walls of stone enclose a huge, cool cavity in the earth, threaded by the stream and waterfalls. Lush ferns, mosses, wildflowers, and small trees soften the dark gray stone.
That's obviously part of my Park Minute series. So here we are in the middle of summer, and get out there and enjoy some of these places, especially before they dry up too much. We're getting some rain now, but we don't know what will happen in August. So turn off that screen and go outside and enjoy our parks. And thanks for joining me, and we'll see you again soon.